Dr. Mustafa Barghouti. Welcome back to the show. I wouldn't normally seek to lead you into internal controversies, but I'm afraid I can no longer ignore what happened this week with a démarche made by, on the face of it, the president's office, certainly his part of his party, from the presidency itself, which was a savage critique against the resistance in Gaza, blaming them for the mass murder of tens of thousands of Palestinians in the last 165 days. It was a denunciation that could only be justifiable if an all-out civil war was about to be launched in the Palestinian arena, just at a time when one would have thought the Palestinians needed national unity more than anything else. What was your take on it, Dr. Mustafa? And I apologize again for dragging you into it, but everyone's talking about it. It'll look pretty strange if we don't discuss it.
Well, thank you, George, and congratulations on your recent success. And we consider it a success for Palestine as well. And I believe the statement you relate to, or you have mentioned, is a statement that was issued by Fata. Although many members of Fata have expressed their unhappiness and that they are not accepting it, which is encouraging actually, because I am sure there are many good people in Fatah who are patriotic and who respect the resistance and respect what all Palestinian groups are doing. Unfortunately, that statement made three mistakes. The first one is although it came as a response, as you know, to a previous statement made by 4 Palestinian political parties, including Hamas, Jihad, Palestinian National Initiative, and PFLP, criticizing the way the president is trying to construct his new government. In the sense that the criticism that was directed to the formation of the government was about the fact that what we need is a national consensus government under the circumstances where we face terrible massacres. We face Israeli reoccupation not only of Gaza but also of the West Bank. We face a second Nakba that is worse than the first one. Anyhow, the response in that statement from Fatah was, as I said, made 3 mistakes. First of all, it blamed the victim, something that we do not allow, do not accept. And those who wrote such a thing, I don't know if they were fully conscious about what they are doing, but such a criticism or such an attack on resistance would serve only the interest of the Israelis. So that was a big mistake. Second, the statement came exactly after we had met in Moscow all the 14 different Palestinian groups, and in a very good positive atmosphere. And we really managed to have a communique, which I myself drafted, and was accepted by both Fatah and Hamas and by all other Palestinian parties. And that indicated that we should work towards bringing in Hamas and Jihad and all other groups into the PLO, so that PLO can be the place for unified Palestinian leadership and to consolidate its role as a representative of Palestinians in a fight where some others are trying to take away from Palestinians the right to represent themselves. So that statement after the meeting in Moscow was absolutely contradictory to that spirit that we had together. The third mistake, of course, that it aggravated a lot of internal dispute at a time when we are really facing a very serious challenge, very serious aggression, very serious war crimes that are committed by Israel, an act of genocide, which requires that we all should be united. And even if we disagree with each other about anything, we shouldn't transform that disagreement into an internal fight. For these three reasons, I am very sorry that this statement came out and in such a manner. And I hope that it will stop there, and that we will not be dragged, any of us, into internal dispute more. But the right of the political forces to express their views about political actions, like formation of a new government for Palestinians, is a right. And people have the right to say their opinion without attacking or undermining any particular group. And that's exactly what was done in that statement of the four groups that criticized the way of forming the government. In short, I want the listeners to understand my position. In my opinion, the most urgent need internally now in Palestine is to form a unified national leadership that includes everybody, that unites all our forces, to stand up to the Israeli aggression and to stand up to the Israeli terrible crimes. And also to stand up to the many conspiracies worldwide, including by the United States, to deform the Palestinian structure. Second, out of this unified national leadership, there should be a national consensus government, which means the government is not the most important thing here. The most important thing is to have the leadership. But the government has to be accepted by everybody. Otherwise, how can it work? Or how can it respond to these terrible challenges that are facing us, including the total destruction of Gaza?
Doctor, the aggression, where is it going next? We're asking the question, will Netanyahu attack Rafah this Ramadan? Do you think he will?
I think if it was up to Netanyahu alone, he would. And he is trying not only to attack Rafah, he's trying to continue this war for a very long time. And I think deep down, he's also trying to escalate the situation in the north to a full-scale war. I don't have to re-explain what was explained several times, why Netanyahu is like that, but everybody knows that at the end of the war, if the war stops, he will immediately be indicted for his huge failure on the 7th of October. And he is already indicted for 4 cases of corruption, which will take him to jail. So this man and people like Gallant and the head of the army, they are all responsible for Israel's failure on the 7th of October. So each of them is interested in prolonging this war. But on the other hand, there are lots of pressures on them. One part of the pressures is their internal now dispute with the United States, which creates the United States efforts to undermine Netanyahu because he really insulted them in every possible way. Second, and it's very important, Israel is suffering from inability to tolerate all the human losses they are having in the battlefield. They are unable to sustain this terrible economic crisis they are in because of the war, because of this war that lasted longer than anybody would have expected, but also because of their failures. They failed. They failed to consolidate their occupation. They failed to eradicate resistance as they have dreamt. And they failed to bring back their hostages. And here comes the other pressure that they are sustaining, which is the pressure from families of prisoners who are upgrading their criticism and demonstrations against Netanyahu and actually unifying with them all the forces that want Netanyahu out. So in the middle of all of that, there are negotiations that are happening in Qatar now. And the proposals, Hamas managed to be smart in their proposals. They made certain concessions that makes it very difficult for Netanyahu to reject and refuse, out of the care about the situation of the people in Gaza.
This delegation that has gone to Qatar, it took a long time to be briefed, to be tasked, told what its mandate was. It begins to look to me like Netanyahu is losing the internal battle, and that some kind of pause in the slaughter, at least, is highly likely in the next few days. Is that also your reading?
Till 1 hour ago, it wasn't my reading. But after reviewing the most recent reports and news, it sounds like we are closer than any other time during the last 2 months to the possibility of having a temporary ceasefire, on which one can build the possibility of ending this war. So I think, yes, we are closer, but one has to be careful, because Netanyahu is a very dangerous man. He can maneuver in every possible way if he doesn't want an agreement to be reached. But I think the situation is very tight for him now. And probably and hopefully, and that would be great news for our people in Gaza, we are getting closer to the possibility of a 42 days of ceasefire.
Inshallah, as they say. Finally, your own Palestinian National Initiative was one of the organizations, one of the 4 groups that you quoted earlier, alongside Hamas, Jihad, and PFLP. Yours being the secular, can I call it secular? Certainly not Islamist, not communist, Marxist. It sounds to me that the Palestinian National Initiative feels a bit like the future. Can you tell us about it? Tell us what it means, what it consists of, and what its program is.
Well, the Palestinian National Initiative for sure is sort of progressing very rapidly. And maybe I can say that the polls are showing that it is now the 3rd force in Palestine and growing very fast. It is a democratic national movement that was founded by a group of Palestinian leaders, some of whom you know very well, like Dr. Haidar Abdel Shafi and Edward Said, myself and many others. And we were established on the basis of rejection of Oslo Agreement, because we saw in that agreement very big risk for the future of Palestinians, as huge mistakes made, especially the mistake of signing an agreement with Israelis without insisting on complete and total end of settlement activities. And we are now paying a price for that mistake. So it was formed to be an alternative movement. It is independent from both Fata and Hamas. And it tries to respond to the feelings and willings and ideas of what we call the silent majority in the middle, which aims to see Palestine as a democratic country at the end, as a free democratic country. And our program consists of 3 parts. The first part is freedom, of course, how to achieve freedom. And we are proposing a very clear strategy of changing the balance of power through resistance, a lot of emphasis on popular nonviolent resistance, boycott, divestment, sanctions against Israel, reunifying Palestinian groups and a unified national leadership, and reunifying the efforts of all parts of the Palestinian people, those inside 48 areas, in the occupied territories and in the diaspora. But the other 2 sides of our, two parts of our program is one about democratic internal transformation, because we want to see full democracy in Palestine, the right of the people to choose their leaders democratically and freely, which is something we did not have since 2006. And also a pluralistic system which allows separation of powers between judiciary, executive, and legislative, which we don't have at the moment. But also this movement has very big emphasis on social issues and social justice issues. So it pays a very big attention to the rights of the people who are poor, how to take, how to improve their situation. There is very big part of it about women's rights, about youth rights, and it is not surprising that in our movement, 80% of our members now are young people and women. So it's the youngest Palestinian movement, you could say, with lots of young people in it. And it aspires to give Palestinians another alternative. But one very important point that has been characteristic of the Palestinian National Initiative, that it shies away completely from any aspect of factionalism, and it concentrates a lot on unity. And that's why we've been able to be frequently the mediator also between Fatah and Hamas to achieve national unity.
Fantastic. Sound like our kind of guys. Thank you very much, Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, MD, MP, and of the Palestine National Initiative. Thanks for joining us. Fascinating interview.